Born to accomplish this task, fear does not reside within me. Whether a path is presented or not, I shall forge my own. Standing on that road, tears clouded her eyes, inundated with a multitude of contemplations, her destiny and prospects failed. Princess, a delightful and contented young lady, resides harmoniously with her parents. She represents the sole offspring of the Honorable Mr. Tony and Mrs. Helen Obi, their abode stationed in the urban center, occasionally dispersing to the rural village to partake in festivities. It was during one of these pilgrimages that an unfortunate incident befell Princess Patriarch, leaving her solely in the care of her grieving mother. Assuaged by the absence of assistance from her uncles, Mrs. Helen pledged herself to nurture her offspring utilizing the limited resources afforded by her modest trade. Time elapsed and Princess blossomed into a statuesque, resplendent, and astute young woman. Recently admitted into an esteemed institution of higher learning, she yearns to acquire knowledge. Mrs. Helen, in relentless pursuit, endeavors to accumulate the necessary funds to fulfill her daughter's educational ambitions. However, upon arranging the payment of tuition and lodging expenses, Princess was disheartened to discover that the school dormitories had reached full capacity. This realization weighed heavily upon her, as she comprehended her mother's inability to finance external lodgings given the modest returns derived from her endeavors. Burdened by such thoughts, a gentle tap on her shoulder redirected her focus. Glancing upwards, Princess beheld a stunning fair maiden, her visage adorned with a radiant smile. With her gleaming teeth, exquisite locks, and the fragrance of a lavish perfume, it is impossible to overlook the fact that she is an exceptionally affluent young lady. Flashing a smile, she introduced herself as Sandra. Princess was taken aback, urging her to relax and explaining how she had happened upon her, distressed and lost in contemplation, and felt compelled to check up on her. From the very moment Sandra and Princess crossed paths, Princess's fortunes began to change. After sharing her troubles, Sandra made a promise to assist her and invited Princess to reside with her. The two exchanged contact information, and Sandra departed. Revealing that she was the daughter of a prosperous business magnate, Sandra informed Princess that she owned her own vehicle and apartment. She sought companionship and help with minor tasks, offering Princess the role. Eagerly accepting the opportunity, Princess assured Sandra that she would never give her cause for complaint. Instantly, Princess contacted her mother, and the two celebrated. Within a few weeks, Princess had settled into both school and the apartment, with Sandra appearing as though sent by a divine power. While Sandra was rarely home, as she was perpetually carousing and clubbing with friends around town, she displayed genuine kindness toward Princess. Sandra would often bestow upon her second-hand clothes, shoes, and accessories, in addition to providing nourishment and occasional monetary assistance. On one fateful Friday afternoon, as Princess finished her lectures early, she decided to go home and rest. Standing on the road and waiting for a bus to take her home, suddenly a Lexus 480 Jeep stopped in front of her. On the driver's seat sat a very handsome, tall black guy with a set of shiny white teeth. "Hi, I'm Ken," he said, smiling. "Can I give you a lift?" he said. Princess reluctantly agreed to the offer. During the ride she felt instantly connected with the guy as they were conversing and getting to know each other better. They exchanged contacts and promised to call. 3 weeks later, Princess is yet to hear from the mysterious stranger. She was anxious and could not figure the reason the man did not call. "Maybe I don't match his standards or class," said Princess, who confided in Sandra about the mysterious guy. "Forget him, it's his loss." "You are a jewel," said Sandra, who tried to cheer her up, and urged Princess to follow her to one of her parties, as she promised to introduce her to some of her male friends, of which she politely declined. Some days later, as Princess was on her way to school, she saw an old woman by the roadside crying for help. Princess ran to and discovered that she twisted her ankle. She offered to take her to the hospital. Time to see the doctor. She was surprised to see Ken as the doctor. Later she discovered that Ken didn't call her because he misplaced her number and could reach her, but fate brought them together. As he promised to take her out On a particular date, during their second meeting, they came to the realization that a deep affection had developed between them, and their bond was remarkably strong. This was especially true for Ken, who had lost all hope of ever encountering her again. Upon reconnecting, he experienced overwhelming happiness. As several months elapsed, their love flourished, and Princess was on the brink of completing her first year of school. Consequently, she made the decision to introduce her boyfriend, Ken, to her friend, Sandra. Both parties agreed on this arrangement, and an appointment was scheduled. On the designated day, Sandra, who was eagerly anticipating meeting Princess' boyfriend, became so impatient that she dressed early. Ken, with a bouquet of flowers in hand and a broad smile on his face, knocked on the door. Princess promptly opened the door, and as she was about to introduce them, Sandra abruptly shouted Ken's name and hurriedly retreated to her room, slamming the door shut. The unexpected turn of events left Princess in a state of shock, unable to fathom what had just occurred. On the other hand, Ken excused himself and returned home, promising to call her later. Princess, filled with curiosity and concern, decided to pay Sandra a visit. To her surprise, she found Sandra in tears and made every effort to offer solace, demanding an explanation in return. Sandra, however, stubbornly refused to speak, instead pleading with Princess to end her relationship with Ken, threatening to evict her if she didn't comply. Overwhelmed with anger, Princess left Sandra's place and stormed into Ken's house, determined to demand answers from him. Left with no other choice, Ken confessed the astonishing truth to Princess. He revealed that he was actually her first boyfriend, and they had broken up due to his intolerance of her lifestyle and excessive partying. However, he reassured her of his unwavering love and vowed to always stand by her side, fighting for. With no alternative left, the princess made a vow to fight for her love. Consumed by a deep affection for Ken, she couldn't envision a life without him. They sought solace in each other's arms and mended their differences. After several hours, the princess returned to her abode where she encountered Sandra, who had already gathered her allies in preparation for battle. Urging Sandra to make a swift decision, the princess warned of the impending consequence of being cast out into the unforgiving cold. Silently, the princess retreated to her quarters, gathering her belongings before departing. Overwhelmed with tears and devoid of a destination, she resolved to forge her own path and determine her own future. Standing alone and filled with trepidation along a desolate road, a jeep came to a halt before her. It was Ken, offering solace and transport to his opulent estate, as he hailed from a magnificently affluent family. Inquiring about how he knew of her expulsion, Ken simply stated his awareness of Sandra's capabilities. He promised to shield her from harm and treat her with the utmost reverence befitting a princess. Several weeks later, Ken introduced her to his family, who warmly welcomed her into their midst. She quickly garnered favor, particularly from Ken's mother, who delighted in having a daughter-in-law possessing both beauty and a nurturing nature. Unlike Sandra, the mother had never approved of her son's previous relationship. A year later, they exchanged vows and embarked on their honeymoon in Paris.